Let's get started. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And welcome to the first Prytek Tech Series webinar of 2023. We're delighted to welcome 1TX as our first speakers of the year. For those of you who've been on the webinars before, and welcome to those who haven't, the goal of this webinar series is to increase awareness across the Prytek group of the various technologies that we have within the group. And like I said, delighted to have 1TX with us today to kick off 2023. Our webinar today is going to cover getting it right the first time and every time, simulating to reduce the risk of failure. How does 1TX empower firms to run an objective evaluation and selection process? And data as a service, getting over the regulatory hurdles. Just a bit of admin, this webinar is recorded. There will be a Q&A section at the end, so please put your questions in the chat box at the bottom and we'll get to them. I'm going to hand over now to Balram, 1TX's Chief Commercial Officer, so take it away, Balram.
Thank you, Rosie. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So thank you for the opportunity to really present 1TX to all of you. I've broken the thing into a few slides, so what I will probably do is quickly run through what 1TX does as a business, and then quickly cover the three themes that Rosie sort of brought up. So the whole idea was to really spend time on the three most popular services that 1TX provides to its customers, and then we'll throw it open for Q&A. So as Rosie mentioned, please feel free to pop your questions on the chat, and then we can pick that up at the end of the presentation. So very quickly, if I start about who are we, right? So I'm sure some of you must be aware of two different companies. There was a company within Prytek called Prove and a company called QA Assure. So 1TX is the rebranded version where the two companies have come together. So effectively, the product side of Prove has combined with the services side, which QA Assure brought together. And about 12 months back, the company was rebranded as 1TX. So yes, so effectively, we are global, headquartered in Singapore. Engineering services and platform services being done out of Israel and Chennai. And I've just joined 1TX a few weeks back, and I'm based in London. And we will talk a little bit more in terms of what the combined entity provides or offers as its service offering. Now, if you really look at 1TX, as I mentioned, there are two parts to the business. One is a SaaS platform. And effectively, the SaaS platform does lots of things, but we call it as a platform which helps customers accelerate innovation. And innovation means many different things to many different customers as such. It could be proof of concepts. It could be quick POCs that you do in terms of custom built software, or it could even be comparison of products to effectively look at which one fits the business case and the business problem that you're looking at solving. And underneath, we provide a whole set of services, which is primarily what is classically defined as QA. So it includes all of the QA activities from testing, penetration testing, load testing, site reliability engineering, device testing, so a whole gamut of that. Now, as I mentioned, these services were effectively offered by two different entities. QA Assure doing all the QA and testing services, Proof focused purely on the platform side. And I'll tell you how we've integrated the two together as well. So in a nutshell, these are the core offerings as far as 1TX is concerned. On the left-hand side, what you see is services which are largely platform-driven. So it's a combination of the platform that we offer as a SaaS product. And on top of that, we have layered the services component on that. So when you talk about things like open innovation, or when you talk about things like QA as a service, the underlying platform is what enables those services to be provided to customers. On the right-hand side is the classical services piece. So we still continue to have that backbone. Having said that, we focus on just a few select areas. So it's effectively product engineering, because we have deep product engineering capabilities, having built the platform on our own. And likewise, we do some of the classical things in terms of application development and cloud transformation. Now, as I mentioned, we'll keep this focus today on three themes. So one is QA as a service, and we all know how quality assurance is very, very important, especially when it comes to software, and more so when it comes to a regulated environment, effectively the banking, financial services, insurance, and even the healthcare world. And when I mean why we need to get it right first time, every time is if we fail, the regulator is going to come hard, right? Given the world we are in today, effectively, there's an increased focus in terms of cybersecurity, right? And hence, testing becomes very, very important. Likewise, there's a whole myriad of regulations, whether it's GDPR, whether it is PCI DSS, whether it's Basel, the likes of that. All of those have a set of requirements, which means that the software needs to be compliant and well tested before you go live with that. And more importantly, given the digital transformation and the pace of transformation that's happening today, right? And increasing adoption of both agile and DevOps, which means the whole CI/CD or continuous integration, continuous deployment kind of model. You really cannot afford for anything to go wrong, right? You just have to ensure that you get it right the first time. Now, the core thing in terms of what testing and QA requires is the ability and access to large scale, large volume of production data. And effectively through the platform, we are able to generate data as a service, whether it is for QA, whether it's for POCs, or whether it's for automation. And again, that's the second theme that I wanted to pick up. And the final piece is effectively the way we are trying to disrupt some of the product selection process, which our clients go through. Today, in a traditional world, we effectively look at running RFPs. We get vendors to pitch against an RFP against a set of defined criteria or requirements. And then it's a long process in terms of presentations and references and the likes of that. What the platform allows our customers to do, and I think all of you must have seen the video that Citibank put out, which is a live customer that we have. Citi has been able to, and our customers are actually able to use the platform, look at a use case based POC, which they get their vendors to run, and really drive a very objective product evaluation and a selection process, which means that you get the best fit in terms of the product, and more importantly, less chances of the project not giving you the return on investment that you envisaged. So let's start with QA as a service. And again, I think QA Assure, which is part 1TX now, has been in the QA and the testing space for close to a decade. And over that period, it's really focused on the automation journey as far as testing is concerned. Testing itself has obviously gone through a significant amount of change over the years. The increasing use of automation, but having said that, automation is still not mainstream, because at the end of the day, it's not as simple as putting an automation pack together. It's a question of how do I maintain it, how do I keep it updated, and more importantly, how do I pivot it towards some of the more modern techniques, whether it is using machine learning or AI when it comes to test case generation, test case tweaks, and the likes of that. And as a part of these QA as a service offerings, we cover the entire stack, right? All the way from development to deployment and production. And underpinning each of those, what 1TX has been able to do is build its own set of tools. And I think that's where it gets interesting, because traditionally on the testing and the testing automation space, you've got plenty of tools, but a lot of them are very expensive. At the other end, you've got a whole set of open source tools. But again, the whole thinking is open source makes it much, much more difficult to get it through a regulated environment and the likes of that. And what 1TX has done over the last few quarters is effectively stitch together a set of tools, picking up the open source stack, and ensuring that we're able to provide that to our customers as a service. So what we've been able to do is to get some of our clients to actually retire some of the more expensive tools and effectively use the platform on an as a service model when it comes to testing. And again, there's a bunch of tools, and it covers the whole spectrum, all the way from the security side to test automation, performance, environment, and even test data management. And again, happy to get into details at a later stage, if you're interested. And what I thought was, rather than spend too much time on the product features, probably jump straight into a couple of case studies to bring this to life. So the first one was the ANZ Bank was looking at implementing a core banking platform globally, cutting across their operations in 17 odd countries. And as a part of that, they chose an off-the-shelf COTS product, right, on the core banking side. Clearly, they were working to very aggressive timelines in terms of going live and the rollout and the likes of that, which meant that the testing part was not just critical, but it was also required to adhere to these aggressive timelines and obviously the regulated nature of the rollout as well. So where 1TX was able to come in was effectively starting right from the beginning in terms of sitting down with the client and building the test strategy, looking at the tracks which could be automated, working on the choice of the automation tools, and more importantly, looking at how you could repeat those cycles fairly quickly. And some of the business outcomes, I think we'll cover that, but I think we covered the whole area in terms of both functional and non-functional. And it included performance testing, quality and code review, and more importantly, security testing as well. And the business outcomes, I think, were very superb in terms of what I might say. So we were able to bring down regression cycles from weeks to days. Obviously, through automation, significant amount in terms of headcount reduction, in terms of efficiency improvement, and more importantly, resulting in cost and higher productivity. And given the level of automation that we were able to put in, there were no high severity defect leakages, which meant that you would have to go back to the drawing board. So overall, that's one of the engagements that we've successfully done. And again, I think we can drill down deeper if that's interesting. I can get the team to delve into the details as well. The other one, probably a little outside of the core banking side, more on the insurance side. But again, this is for Aviva in Singapore. And again, it comes to core QA and testing. And as a part of Aviva's got an environment or a technology environment which includes legacy and the newer technologies. So a lot of their backbone sits on an AS400 piece, which means automating those require very specialist skills. And what we were again able to do was to bring both the front end, which is modern, and the back end, which is AS400, really build a test automation strategy. And as a part of this, again, Aviva was using things like load runner for load testing, performance testing. They were able to retire some of those products, get cost savings, but more importantly, also work on a full stack automation strategy, and effectively through that bring in both savings and efficiency gains and productivity gains as well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover, at least on the first theme, which was to get it right the first time. And obviously, hopefully, these two case studies have sort of given you a view in terms of how we are able to automate a very fragmented technology landscape. And when it comes to testing, more importantly, both drive the speed of release to production, and obviously bring down the level of defects as well. And it's not just the initial test automation strategy that we focus on, but we then work with our clients to keep that evergreen in terms of keeping the test cases updated, increasing the testing coverage, and the likes of that as well. Now, the second theme that I wanted to cover today was data as a service. And what I thought was there's an overlap between QA as a service and some of the data as a service piece as well. And I thought, let me straight away start with test data as a case study. And this was for an insurance company. Again, effectively have a large backbone in terms of legacy stack. But more importantly, what they were looking at doing, where they were looking at moving their investment products onto a SaaS provider by the name of FNZ. And as a part of that transaction, they were really looking at how could they get access to high quality, large volumes of test data, because they were looking at building functionality to be able to offer upsell customized solutions to their pension and annuity customers, right? So effectively, that was the problem statement. And what 1TX was able to do was to use the SaaS platform that we have, because one of the features on the platform that we have is the ability to generate production level data. And this is not just synthetic data, but effectively we work with clients to get a small sample of their data, and then using algorithms, including machine learning and some of the Gaussian mathematical models, we are actually able to replicate and generate production level data. So it's much more than just synthetic level data. And that's pretty much what we were able to do for Aviva in this case. And Aviva used this for two parts. One was for the testing process itself, but as they were going through some of the front-end product channel selections as well, what they were able to do was to use the same data, cut copies of that, and give it to the vendors for them to come back with use cases and then actually be evaluated on the basis of what they delivered. So this is obviously very, very interesting, and I will cover that a little bit more in detail in terms of what this means, at least within a regulated industry and regulated sector. So if you really look at the whole banking space or you look at the healthcare space, availability of production level data has always been a challenge, right? Because you have data protection norms, client data cannot be, taken out of your environment, et cetera, et cetera. And by the same token, getting an external vendor to be, brought into your IT environment is a no-no, unless, or it's a long and painful process. And what does that result in? It results in the fact that, I cannot do proof of concepts with my vendors, or I'm constrained in terms of, what I can do with them. More importantly, I use traditional, methods like data masking, both time consuming, it costs money. More importantly, it doesn't still give me the volumes of data that I would require. What 1TX is able to do through the platform is it effectively uses a technique called deep mirroring. And through that, we are able to, generate data. And this data is as good as a production level data, because what we do is we run it in 2 stages. The stage 1 is using the header information and the table structure that we get from you without any data. We are able to replicate, understand the relationships between the various data sources. And once that is done, we go back to the customer to say, does this kind of make sense? Are the fields numerical? Are they unstructured? We go through all of those initial QA level requirements before we get a sign off from the customer and actually generate production level data. What that means is banks and other regulated industries are absolutely able now to provide their vendors with volumes of data that is required for near live production level testing, more importantly, for things like scalability, volumetric testing, and the likes of that. Where it also gets a little bit more interesting is, while we talk about production level data, whether it is, core banking records, whether it is, payment data, or, whether it's any of the others, what the platform is also then able to do is to, intersperse and generate network level data as well. So you're actually able to simulate your environment in the truest sense. And what that allows us to do, or clients to do, is to actually go through a full-blown QA and testing process. And again, I thought I'll probably take a couple of, case studies and, bring this to life. So first one is with a large consulting firm. So they're a Big 4 audit and consulting firm. 1TX is actually working with their fintech arm. And one of the requirements which came to us from their financial crime organization or consulting organization was, hey, we are evaluating a bunch of fintechs. All of them have an offering in the financial crime space. But what we really are struggling with is getting production level data in volumes that we require. Each of the fintechs does come with, or they all come with their own set of data, but we believe that data obviously, makes their product look much better. But we want, independent data. So that was the problem statement or the ask that, was provided to us. What they shared with us was they had information and the data, no sample data per se. We took as previously, we use the deep mirroring technique that we have within the platform. And on the back of that, we were able to generate millions of records of various data that they were looking for. It was live payment and banking transaction data that they wanted, and that we were able to do for them. The other example, and I think at the end of this, when Rosie sends this deck out to all of you, we will also share a couple of links to videos with you. So one is a video which was jointly put out by Citi and us, or rather Citi has done this video testimony where they've covered 1TX. And again, I think one of the things that they were looking at doing was they wanted to look at evaluating some of the fintechs and some of the more modern products that existed outside. As I mentioned, the challenge was obviously the limitation in terms of getting them into the Citi environment. So Citi effectively used the platform. They were able to generate the kind of data that they required. And on the back of that, they were able to run an evaluation process. And again, I think Citi is a referenceable case study. This is within the internal Citi innovation group, as they call it. And coming to the third and the final thing that I wanted to cover off today was the vendor selection process, right? I think all of us, including, and especially all of you, both on the consulting side and otherwise, have either been at one end of the the selection process or at the receiving end of the selection process, right? And having gone through many of those, we know those are very painful, subjective, requires lots of written submissions. More importantly, at the end of it, when somebody's told that, you've not made it, there's a whole set of questions which come in saying, why not? I think I can do that. We think our product has got all those features. So very, very subjective, as I said, and it's very time consuming, and it still does leave you with the risk of, getting it wrong in terms of the product. What 1TX has been able to do with its clients, and again, I think I'll bring this to life through a few case studies, is effectively we work with our clients to replicate their internal IT environment. So, and what I mean by that is whether it is the hardware infrastructure in terms of virtual machines, whether it is the data generation piece, which I've already covered, whether it is simulating some of the network and the network traffic piece, which becomes very important. What we're able to do is simulate all of that. So we provide the infrastructure. And again, I think the question which, a lot of you might have is, so does an AWS provide an infrastructure, or an Azure provide the similar kind of an infrastructure? As I mentioned, the two distinct features which, makes this platform very unique is the data generation capability and the ability to, simulate the network environment. So effectively for clients, what this means is they are able to either create a white labeled POC environment, which mirrors what they have internally, with no requirement in terms of data being copied, their production level data being reused, etc. And what that then allows them to do is to start defining use cases on the basis of which they want to evaluate vendors. Because suddenly this white labeled platform or environment allows you to onboard 3, 4, 5 vendors who you want to evaluate, define technical or business use cases for them, define the KPIs, and transparently share it out, saying, these are the KPIs that will be used to evaluate your performance once you deliver the use case. And on the back of that, actually make a very objective selection in terms of, the best product or the best product fit. And again, I think in terms of case studies, I just wanted to cover 2. I think this fits in very well as far as, some of the cybersecurity pieces are concerned. And again, there's a video that we will share as a link at the end of the presentation. But we work with KPMG and KPMG Cyber Consulting Organization. So as a part of the core service, this group provides consulting services, helps in terms of cybersecurity policy definition, the likes of that with their clients. And when it came to some of the financial services clients, the ask was, also in terms of KPMG helping them with product selection and, recommending final sets of products on the back of the consulting piece. What they were able to do was white label the 1TX platform. They call it Cyber Arena, interestingly, and effectively use Cyber Arena to run live use cases on the back of a consulting engagement, and then actually go back and recommend to their clients in terms of, what the best cyber products or which are the best products that fit the requirement that the client has got. And again, I think I've covered all of this, but having said that, here the whole network traffic simulation becomes very, very important, because we are all aware of the fact that SolarWinds, which is very popular in terms of a cybersecurity product, including Microsoft, all of them got hacked, right? And having said that, if you do a post-facto analysis, obviously the whole network traffic piece was the one which gave away the fact that there was an attack. So I think there are more and more and newer tools which pick up some of these areas. And again, I think the whole network traffic piece that we have on the platform makes it very interesting. And the other one was Citibank. And again, I did cover the data element, but effectively what Citi was able to do, or what they're able to do, is they've actually run what they don't call it POCs, they call it proof of value. And they've been able to run 12 proof of values over the last 3 quarters as far as products are concerned. So their whole ethos and thinking has been, there's a whole bunch of fintechs who are coming in and disrupting the world that we address. How do we look at some of the best ones, partner? How do we look at who to invest in? And as a part of that, the platform has actually enabled them to do this whole POC as a service process. And again, I think the interesting bit as far as Citi is concerned is they have white labeled the platform. So it's 1TX. The underlying platform is 1TX. We provide them with some of the core services in terms of use case, KPI, some of those pieces. But having said that, as far as their vendors are concerned, and as far as Citi is concerned, Citi runs it like its own platform. And the last one, which I thought in terms of case study before I finish, was also on the insurance side. So again, this was another one where we partnered with a consulting firm. So this was Deloitte, and this was more on the cybersecurity side. So again, I think there were 3 or 4 specific areas which this insurance company was looking at, getting covered. And again, I think what we were able to do was replicate their whole IT environment, including some of the large legacy stack that they had. And on the back of that, they were able to, really do a real-time evaluation in terms of products and come to the best fit as far as that was concerned. So that's pretty much, what I wanted to cover in terms of the presentation. So open for questions if there are any.
Please put your questions in the chat box if you have some.
Oh.
Or speak out also works.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Well, thank you. That's very interesting. Can you share maybe some details on your how do you monetize this software?
Yeah, so it's like any other SaaS platform. So the way we really look at doing that is we work with clients in terms. So there are a few elements which we need to establish before we put a pricing point onto that. And that is largely dependent on a couple of things. The first one is in terms of the environment that needs replication, because clearly the more complex the environment, the more expensive the platform becomes, because we provision that environment for our clients. And then it also depends on in terms of the kind of data and the number of POCs that the client expects to generate. So it's a function of the complexity of the environment, the data, and the number of POCs. But the classical pricing model is a SaaS pricing model. So we look at an annual pricing model as far as the platform is concerned. So whether it is Citi, whether it's KPMG, that's the way it's been done.
There's a question in the chat box.
Yeah.
How does 1TX provide organizations with the relevant synthetic data so that they can test it?
Yeah, so within the platform, Thomas, we have we've patented technology which we call as deep mirroring, and clients do a couple of things. In a few cases, they're happy to share some very basic sample data. In a lot of cases, what we do get from clients is nothing but the header and the table structure as far as data is concerned. Once we get that, we use deep learning to try and get the correlation between the various databases and the headers and the data sources. We go back to the client once that is done in terms of the basic relationship mapping and also the data structure. We get that signed off from the client, and then the platform, using deep mirroring and some algorithms that have been built in, is able to then generate that synthetic data.
Thank you. Next question in the chat. How can companies within the Prytek group leverage opportunities to work with 1TX?
So again, I think within the Prytek group, if you see an opportunity where you are consulting or advising your organization in terms of product selection, or if you're helping your clients in terms of some of the services areas, right? Whether it's consulting to then getting into implementation, I think those are areas where definitely have a chat with us. There could be an opportunity to partner. As far as 1TX is concerned, we are absolutely happy to go under your umbrella, your brand as well. So there's no problem as far as that is concerned. And again, I think it's a case of how do we maximize that, even if it is a simple case of something which doesn't directly fall into your remit, but you see an opportunity there, do flag it, because I'm sure we can work a way around in terms of making it a win-win for all of us. And Ian, on your question in terms of mutualizing test data, well, most clients have actually said that they want the data to be then exclusively generated for them. So we haven't really looked at how to mutualize that piece. But having said that, if there are opportunities, absolutely happy to explore that. Because a simple example is of the FinTech lab and the financial crime piece. The clear requirement was, once you generate the data, can we get copies of that? We said absolutely. You can either keep it in the cloud, or you can copy it, keep it on-prem. Their only requirement was, once that is done, we want that data to be then deleted, because we don't want you to share that with any of the others. Even though it's synthetic data, it is not live data, but nevertheless.
Great. Does anyone have any further questions, or we can wrap it up otherwise?
I've got a quick question for Balram. I mean, in terms of our unique selling points and competitors in the market, I suppose. I mean, how do we compare? What gives 1TX the competitive edge that clearly Citi and several other organisations like?
Yeah. So very quickly, right? As I mentioned, the platform has got the capability to provision infrastructure. Having said that, that's not a unique capability, because today most banks, most clients are either on the cloud with an Amazon or an Azure or a Google Cloud, and they have the ability to provision that very same thing that the platform does. What differentiates us from everybody is this data generation and the network traffic generation element. And that's what is, got all these conversations and some of the wins that, I spoke about. If you really look at Citi, effectively what Citi were very interested in was the ability to, the data generation piece was what was very important, along with the network generation piece. And we are having conversations with a few other banks, both in North America and here, likewise with a few insurance firms. And all of them have come back with only one piece, which is, we like the data piece, right? So that's pretty much what sets us, apart from lots of others.
Thank you for that, Balram. We will send the slides around after the meeting. So if anyone has any other questions for Balram, his email will be in the last slide, I believe. So feel free to reach out to him with any further questions. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you at the next Tech Series webinar. Have a good day.
Thank you all. And thanks, Rosie, for inviting me for this. Thank you.
No worries.
Bye.